Everyone has the ability to improve at their own pace. That is just one of the gems today that you will hear on the Autism Outreach podcast. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Rose Griffin, and I had a wonderful conversation with Jeannette Passanisi. She is a mom to 3 children, and one of her children has autism, is an autistic child. And she shares with us her journey into the autism world and what it has been like to support her son, who is now 20. But she shares with us what were the signs of autism, what were his services that were most helpful. And she talks about when you're working with a child and going into the home, she has worked with a lot of different providers, as her son has as well. It all depends on the delivery. And is our student processing the information or performing? We have an amazing conversation today about how she has helped to support her autistic son. And I'm delighted that you are tuning in today.
You're listening to Autism Outreach Podcast, a podcast full of ready-to-use strategies to help those with autism strengthen their communication skills. Here's your host, Rose Griffin of ABA Speech, a speech therapist and board-certified behavior analyst who shares tips you can use in your next therapy session.
Welcome to the Autism Outreach Podcast. We have a wonderful guest with us today. We have Jeannette Passanisi. Thanks so much, Jeannette, for joining us. I'm thrilled to meet you today and have you on the show.
Thank you so much for asking me to be on the show.
And so is anything in my life. I met Jeannette over on TikTok, and social media is a big part of how I've grown my business here on ABA Speech, and really just how I've grown my connections with other people. I really love that. And you came up on my For You page, which, if you don't know, when you're scrolling through TikTok, it shows you videos that you may like based on your behavior. And so you have an autistic son, and I really was moved by one of your TikToks, and I reached out and messaged you, and I was like, I need to have her on the podcast. So thanks for coming on today. We have our listeners are parents, speech therapists, and then I'm also a BCBA as well. But I think it's always great to have on autistic individuals, parents who have an autistic child, because sometimes I think we get removed in the day-to-day of who we're supporting. Because sometimes, especially when you're school-based, you can't ask parents questions. You just can't have these kinds of dialogues with the actual people that you're working with sometimes. So I appreciate you coming on and just sharing with us. So for those of you who have not seen your TikToks, can you share with us a little bit about you and your journey into the autism world?
Sure. I'm a 55-year-old mom of 3 adult children. My youngest one is Robbie, and during the pandemic, I started a TikTok because I felt so isolated trying to support him. At the time, he was 17, and everything was just so overwhelming with his schedule just stopping, and my whole life had to be put on hold to support him, like so many of us parents do. Robbie is currently 20 years old. He's in a residential school here in Massachusetts, and I completely blame it on the pandemic, just because, just like so many of us, on Friday, February 13th, we got the phone call in the morning that said school is canceled for 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks turned into what seemed like an eternity, but it was really about 7 months before Robbie was able to go back into the classroom. And before that, we did have some supports in home, plus the school and his schedule. And that made his life, I wouldn't say perfect, but it was pretty good, because, a lot of these young people, they rely on that scheduling, and they stick to that schedule. And when that got yanked from him, it was like, just like all of us, it was like a shock. But some of the things he did during that time really surprised me, because mask mandates, he was all for it. He loved wearing a mask.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I understand a lot of parents, they had sensory issues, so their kids
Right.
could not wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
But he liked it because I used to say, hey, listen, instead of being Batman, now you're the masked Avenger. And he just went with it. Um, but yeah, he's he was first diagnosed when he was 4 with PDD NOS, because
Oh.
back in 2000 and let's do some math in my head, 2007, that was the diagnosis that was
Oh,
available. And then
okay.
over the years, through different evaluations that we've done independently, he's moved to a level 3 diagnosis back
Mm-hmm.
in, I'm going to say, 2017. And then just recently, this year, we're working with the Laurie Center here in the Massachusetts area.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 different doctors, behavioralists, neurologists,
Mm-hmm.
psychiatrists have all said that he's in the profound autistic level. And then just recently, we had a DNA test done again, a genetic test done again, because the first one was done when he was like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
He came back as having Shank 3,
Hmm.
which is another disorder that I had posted on my page about. But it really, the behaviors that we've seen in my son
Mm-hmm.
over the length of his life, 20 years, it's spot on for what Spark, was it Spark or Spank 3? And it just blew me away. So this is another thing I'm reading about, which is
Yeah.
helping me understand how I need to support him when he's in our home and why he does the things he does.
Yeah. So when
So,
he was, thank you for sharing that. So when he was diagnosed at 4, I guess what were some of those early signs? Because that's what I get asked a lot. Or if I put up a duet on TikTok or YouTube shorts of a parent who has shared about what those early signs are, and they actually have the footage to share about it. People were always very interested in that. And now with the diagnosis, I've been practicing 20 years. So when I first started talking about autism, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, it was 1 in 200 and something. So now the
yes.
incidence rate being 1 in 36, this is just affecting so many people's lives. But what were some of the signs of autism that you recognized in your son? Or did you think it was autism? Did you think he had a delay? Or was he talking? I guess I'm wondering some of those things when he was younger.
Yeah. Robbie was talking at 9, 10 months old, like just like mama, dada, bottle, sis,
Yeah.
up, things like that. And then, and he has 2 older siblings, and they were very busy. His middle sister, I call her Busy Bee, because she was into everything. She was 2 years older than him.
Yeah.
And, it's like trying to juggle everything. I missed some of the milestones because I always thought,
Yeah.
he's going to get there. Why would you start crawling and walking when you just point and your sisters would bring you whatever you wanted?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And he had a 3 and 5-year-old sister who just thought he was like a living doll, and anything he wanted, they would do for him.
Mm-hmm.
Which, was good and bad. But then, the doctor's like, oh, is he walking? Is he talking? And then it was like, and, you just realize one day, oh yeah, he's not really progressing. And then slowly he just stopped talking around 2.5. And we were asked to go into an early intervention program at 2.5 called Tri-City here in the Massachusetts area.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing in-home therapies that where they would try to get him to stack blocks. And this is all like new to me. Like I had 2 beautiful girls who did exactly what they were supposed to do in their development. And here they're trying to get my son to stack blocks and do small activities, and he just couldn't do them. And, I didn't understand why. And unfortunately, the therapists, I forget what organization they were from, because it's like 18 years ago.
Right.
They weren't able to say, oh, your son has autism, because they did not have that degree that you need to be able to give a diagnosis. But they were like, oh yeah, he's definitely delayed. And the PDD NOS, pervasive development disorder, basically said you're delayed. So
right.
We bounced around with MEEP, which is the Medford Early Education Program here, where he started at 3, and went for a couple hours every day for some more advanced, assistance and therapies and things like that. And I kept fighting to get anyone to look at him and give me a diagnosis. And a lot of the doctors would say back in 2007, 2008, oh, we don't diagnose autism until they're like 7 or 8. They're like, there's a lot of things that can go, this way or that way. And, being naive about this, I went with the flow of things, and I trusted, the school district, his doctors, that, okay, this is the path to do it. And then shortly after, I can't remember if it was 2008, 2010, Massachusetts passed a law where they had to provide autism therapies. And then all of a sudden things started opening up with that PDD NOS diagnosis that was still a few years old, but, he saw a speech pathologist for a while. And I kept getting told he may never speak again. He may just have these simple mama, dada, up, cup, drink. And that may be the extent of his language. But, I'm one of these moms, I just don't give up.
Yeah.
And I like to think of myself as a fun mom. My adult daughters may disagree now, but I used to rock out in the car and the radio. Yeah. We would all sing, and some of my daughter's friends would be like, your mom sings a lot. And it was really to get Robbie into singing or even talking. And I didn't realize it was echolalia at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But, he started to learn songs on the radio. And like to this day, he can sing probably every song he hears on the radio. He knows every SpongeBob episode by heart.
Right.
But if you ask him, and it's been like this since, forever, how was your day? He can't say good or bad.
Right.
What you have for lunch? He can't tell you that. What's your best friend's name? He can't say Izzy.
Right.
There's just, and it was heartbreaking. But we just never gave up on him.
Right. So he's communicating with you in a different way. So he uses echolalia, or he says things that he's heard in shows or movies, or mostly.
And it's funny, since the pandemic, and this is kind of this is why we moved over to the Laurie Center. He's talking even less. They noticed that when he went back to the classroom. He does have an AAC device, and he knows what for things that he wants. He knows exactly what page to go to.
Right.
I want lunch. I want home. I want mom. I want toy really means he wants a Happy Meal with a cheeseburger, French fries, a soda, but he says, I want toy, and people don't know that. So when he finds that on the AAC device, and it's useful at his residential school because it will say, I want a cheeseburger, chicken nuggets, French fries, and a drink.
Right.
And then they're like, okay, Robbie, let's go, because there's a McDonald's 2 miles from the school.
Oh,
and they
nice.
do that like once every couple of weeks, which is nice. But it's he talks less and less, but like during the pandemic, and it can be just the way his brain developed. He started getting more OCD kind of behaviors, more routines and rituals, where if you interrupted his routine or his ritual, there would be behavior issues that were not pleasant from us. And they noticed it at school as well. So he expected things to be a certain way, like, God forbid, what's coming up? Indigenous Peoples Day. So last year that rolled around, and there was no school and there was no bus. And he insisted, I'm putting on my coat, I'm putting on my shoes, I have my backpack, I'm walking out the front door, I'm looking for Bernadette, my bus driver.
Right.
And even though you kept saying, we kept saying to him, today's not a school day, today's a home day, today's a Robbie's day, today's a fun day,
Right.
didn't matter. And
that's so hard.
It is. And because of his age, and he's bigger than me now.
Right. He's an adult. Yes. You said he's 20. He's an adult,
he's
man.
20.
Yes.
He's an adult.
Yes.
He would push through you, and sometimes
absolutely.
he would I call it rage pacing.
Okay.
So he's not like looking to hurt you.
Right.
But if you're in his way, he will shoulder you out of the way.
Sure.
He won't walk around you. You have to move, or and there's nothing you can do. You can't, you can try to redirect and things like that. And at that point I was like, I had the state involved. Yeah. And we have a wonderful DDS transition coordinator here in Massachusetts. So when you turn 18, you fill out this form with the school, and then they send it to, the state, and they assign you somebody to help you with that 22 transition. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? Can you refer me? And she did. She was wonderful. So we had a BCBA come in and work with us for about 3 months. Every other week, I filled out a lot of questionnaires with her, and she monitored his behaviors and recognized his OCDs and his rituals. And plus his sleeping. I mean, he's never really slept, but it would always be around the full moon. Right. And then like 2 years ago, it was for a month, he really didn't sleep. And then last year, it was like for 5-6 months, he was running on 2 hours or 3 hours of sleep at night and not sleeping at school. Oh, man. So, and someone has to be up with him, because, he'll run out of the house, or burn or leave the refrigerator open, or turn on the stove. You just don't know. So she came through and said, your son, I'm not supposed to diagnose you, but your son has all the signs of profound autism, but I can't give you that diagnosis. And she's like, have you been trying to have him reevaluated? Oh, and that's in 2017, we had him evaluated, and that's when he got the level 3 autism. Level 3, but so we got into
so the level 3, for people that are listening that don't know, that means that's based on your severity, right? It's a level 1, 2, and 3. So 3 would be profound, or do they call it severe?
Almost profound.
Medically?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So level 3 means they cannot be left alone. They cannot take care of themselves. Right. They need 24-hour supervision. They need help with meal preparation. They need help with toileting. They need help with hygiene. Robbie has a friend who's still considered a level 3, and he can take a shower by himself with some prompts. It's like, okay, it's time to get in the shower. Yes. Use the soap. They have a schedule printed out with the pics. Yes. And the young man can follow it. But he's completely 100% nonverbal. But he uses an AAC device and sign language, and he's bilingual. Oh, wow. By using an AAC device, but he cannot make any, not mom, not mama, nothing. He hums, but nothing. And it just blows my mind how, these two kids can have such different experiences with the same kind of diagnosis. Yeah. It is. And thank you so much for sharing your journey. I think that's so helpful for people because, in the online space, and I'm sure that you've maybe you have not been getting any people talking about autism, but I feel like there are a lot of people who, I'm a BCBA. So there are definitely a lot of people out there who have comments about ABA and things like that. I really don't get a lot of mean comments anymore because my business is ABA speech. So it's like, I do ABA. I'm a BCBA, and a speech therapist. Yeah. So I really don't get a lot of negative comments, but there will be people that have all types of, comments for people, how you should be supporting your son. And do you face any of that on social media, or have people left you alone? I hope they have, but I just feel like parents get a lot of backlash, and it's like, it's nice for you to share your journey with us, because I think it helps us be better providers, but. I do. I do sometimes get some of this backlash of like ABA is evil and everything is evil. Coffee is evil,
Right, right.
And it just depends on how it's delivered. And there's
Yeah,
some people, and believe me, we've had a lot of support people over 20 years come into our house and work with our son.
yeah.
And some ABA people, they would come and I would ask them to leave within a half an hour, but I'm scheduled for an hour and a half. That's not my problem.
Right.
I
This is
don't
my
like
home.
how you're communicating with him. You're not showing him respect. You're
Good.
being too rigid, you know? And
Yeah.
they'd be like, well, I have a degree and blah, blah. I was like, I don't care.
Right.
You're working for my son and me, and
Yes.
you need to provide him, you need to meet him at his level, you
Yeah.
know? And there's other ABAs that come in behavioralists that make it fun. And
Mhm.
honestly, show me any kid that wants to do something where you're forced to sit at a desk and stack blocks, or you're forced to sit at a desk until you see cow. I
Mhm.
mean, or orange or
Mhm.
circle. You're
Right.
going to get nothing. You
Right.
know, and it's really all depends on the delivery. So I would watch the people who would deliver therapies to him, and it was like, wow, they're really animated. They're really
Mhm.
happy. They're meeting him. They're engaging with him. They're getting him to engage. How are they doing that?
Mhm.
Just like what I just did. That's what he used to like. He was like, okay, Robbie, we're going to do this and it's going to be fun. And that instantly put him in, I'm going to do whatever they ask me, you know?
Right.
But then
Right.
again, it's like, is he processing it or is
Right.
he performing? And that's the
Mhm.
real question, you know?
That's
Um,
good. Yeah, I
but
like
if
that.
you're, but if
Processing
you're
or
negative,
performing.
performing,
Mhm.
yeah. But if you're negative, I
Mhm.
can't stand working for people who are
Mm-mm.
negative. If you come right off the bat, like, okay, we're doing this, do this, you know, no one wants to do anything that are asked that way. You know, it's like, you got to meet them at their level, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. And that's like something a lot of people say, do this one, do this one, So you just
Yeah.
have the therapy voice. I tell people don't do the therapy voice. That was
Yeah.
a good example of it. I love that though, processing or performing. And yeah, it all depends on the delivery. I know that's what I try
Exactly.
to say. Like, if you have questions about ABA, just watch my page. This is how I do therapy. I do a lot of clips of how I
Yep.
provide therapy. So I think it's great and good for you to advocate for yourself too. That's why I like to have parents come on the podcast too, because sometimes parents feel like, oh, well, I don't know if I can. And it's like, no, your child, this is your home. Like you are
Yeah.
interviewing this person. You have to have somebody who is respectful and kind. And I always say at ABA
Yeah.
Speech, let's keep therapy fun and functional because it doesn't matter if the kid is 2 or the person's 22. It should still be fun and it should be functional. Why would we want to be around somebody who's got that negative vibe? And people pick up on that. I mean, your son
Oh,
would
yeah.
pick up on that too. So I love that.
Yep.
Thanks for
Or if they're
saying that.
afraid to deliver the therapy, because we had one therapist, he would come in, but Robbie was the most profoundly autistic person he's ever worked with. He
Right.
mostly worked with level 1 and level 2,
Yep.
and Rob was the first level 3, and he was like afraid because
Right.
like Robbie's got a big personality, and
Yeah.
he'll come in and he won't say hi, he'll go rah,
Yeah.
and he'll
Right.
be like
Right.
in your face and
Right.
smiling
Uh-huh.
and very like hi,
Right.
waiting for you to do, because he knows you're in our home to do
Right.
something with him. And if
Right.
you are kind of like taken aback, he's not going to do anything. So this young man was supposed to take him, like we were doing life skills, and
Mm-hmm.
I made these nice laminated sheets when you could buy groceries for $20.
Yeah. Right.
And he would and the job was every Tuesday, take him to Wegmans. Here's his ATM card. That way he learns how to buy things with the
Yeah.
code,
That's great.
Here's the list. This week it's breakfast foods he's buying. And there was like 5, 6 items that he could purchase and then go to the, Wegmans counter, put them on the belt,
Yeah.
bring them in, the whole thing.
Love
The guy
that.
was too afraid to take him to the supermarket, even though we had 2 other people that I absolutely adored. But you can't tell someone, no, you can't take this new job. It's like, oh,
Right.
I'm so happy for you, you know? Um, and they were doing it every Tuesday with him or every,
Right.
once a week. But this guy
Mm-hmm.
was too afraid to take him out,
Yeah.
and if you're too afraid, he's going to elope. You
Right.
have,
Yeah.
Have you dealt with elopement when you're doing training, like when your student doesn't want to participate?
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I
Yeah.
worked in non-public programs for a long time. So students who had unsafe problem behavior that was a barrier to their learning, that was always my jam until I started my own business. So that's
Yeah.
definitely the type of kid that I talk about supporting, because I think the thing is, people don't realize, if they, just like what you're saying, people that are working in a school or working with students who have some mild behavioral concerns, they don't understand what it's like to have a grown man or an adult who has autism, who wants to get that thing or who wants to leave this area. But I've been a part of all of that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's good to talk about these things, because people just don't understand what it's like to support somebody like that. So I appreciate you sharing your journey. It means a lot. If you had one piece of advice that you'd want to give parents or professionals who are supporting autistic learners, what is one last thought that you'd like to share?
That's a very good question. I would say everyone has the ability to improve at their pace. So, it's like, you can't expect, like my son and his best friend, they do things, they have the same diagnosis, they do things differently. Like one can shower completely independent and the other one needs 100% help.
Right.
But am I going to give up on having my son learn how to shower? No. You can prompt, you know what I mean? It's a continuous learning curve, and it's a continuous journey. So don't always have that little piece of hope, because they may surprise you someday.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Jeannette, for coming on the podcast. It was delightful to get to meet you.
It was great to be on here, and I really appreciate you asking me.
Thanks for listening to Autism Outreach. If you enjoyed the show today, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode full of actionable strategies you can use in your therapy room. Write a review too. That would mean so much to me. I always love hearing from you. Have a specific topic that you want included on a future show? Reach out over on Instagram, ABA Speech by Rose, or visit me at www.abaspeech.org.